Hi everyone, my name's Rich. I'm the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation Field Geologist, and in this video I compile the top 10 questions asked by volunteers who come to work in the Bosnian Pyramid Valley. So if you like this video, please don't forget to pop on over to my official YouTube channel, Forgotten Pyramids. There's plenty more videos over there. Like and subscribe, and let's get on with this video. Hope you enjoy. Ciao.
Hi, my name's Rich, this is Ajdin, and welcome to another episode on Forgotten Pyramids. If you like these kinds of videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. So today I'm filming on top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Moon, and today with me is Ajdin. Now Ajdin, tell people on YouTube a little bit about yourself.
Hello people on YouTube, my name is Ajdin and I'm a guide coordinator in the project of the Bosnian Pyramids in the foundation. Besides being guide coordinator, I'm a coordinator for the volunteers and other projects inside this foundation, and I've been involved in this project for 11 years now. We started together as volunteers in 2010. Been visited here when I was in high school, 2006 and 7, when it was just starting, and I saw a lot of people, visitors, saw some volunteers working, and I was imagining myself working there somehow, someday. But I was still young, and after I started University of Sarajevo, I was a psychology student. I came involved, and my plan was to stay here for 2 or 3 weeks, and here I am 11 years later.
So, first of all, it would look awful. We have forests all around the Bosnian pyramids, and if we were to remove all the vegetation from that pyramid, you'd have a huge, unsightly, concrete, geopolymer, conglomerate edifice that would be completely contradictory to the beautiful nature surrounding it. For example, if you look at the Egyptian pyramids, the limestone blocks, they actually blend in with the surroundings, the desert. So in Bosnia, we have green pyramids, the green pyramids of Europe. So perhaps they were always meant to be vegetated.
Exactly, that might just be truth, but also actually this is one of the most common questions that we have of the people who are visiting for the first time. Why don't you already, just dig it out, just show these blocks and dig all the pyramid? But there are plenty of logistic problems as well. Besides that, almost every part of the pyramid has a lot of private property.
Exactly.
There is also a financial limit to the foundation, which is not financially helped or aided by the government. Mm-hmm. And then there is this third thing, and this seems to be like a certain plan towards stopping the project. As, for example, the case for the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. On the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, there once was medieval royal town on the top during the 13th, 14th and 15th century, in the time of the medieval Bosnian kingdom. And after that period, Bosnia has been occupied by different empires during the hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. So everybody neglected this heritage from the medieval time when Bosnia was united and it was powerful, respected kingdom. Unfortunately, during those 100 years of occupation, we have been torn apart between East and West and different occupators, and this is where the nationalism came along. So modern Bosnian, unfortunately, has very confused identity, because most of these medieval remnants of the past actually have been completely neglected. Mm-hmm. And that was the same case with the medieval town at the top of the Sun Pyramid. It was a bunch of rubbles and stones. Nobody took care of it. There was no table saying some information. It's the same case with everywhere. But as we discovered the pyramid and started doing testing archaeological excavations all around,
They became interested.
They became interested all of a sudden into the medieval town, only this one, and then they actually managed to push into the law the restriction that was once like 20-30 meters around this rumble.
2/3.
Yes, completely.
So we can only dig the bottom.
Only the bottom part, and even just so they have more excuses, they rebuilt certain part of the medieval time, but just through the modern walls. So
a reconstruction, it's
yes.
not pretty.
So
and also,
that's
one
another
final
reason.
thing, I suppose, once you excavate a structure, you are, in some sense, destroying it. The structure is being preserved.
Exactly.
As soon as you expose it to the elements, it's going to start eroding.
Exactly.
And that's not something we want to do. So actually, we want to be able to excavate as little as possible for the public to see, while maintaining the structure itself in the condition it's in under the ground.
And even those little parts are definitely more than enough proof that you are talking about artificial structure. But as you said, for me, one of the good examples of this is on the Tumulu. The excess plateau has been exposed years ago, and now we can see that the upper layers are just being devastated. So what I'm thinking is that there is a possibility that those structures have been built in a different time, in the different atmospheric conditions, climates and everything.
Possibly.
They're not made for this.
Or perhaps you take Silbury Hill, for example, in Wiltshire, the UK. This is made out of soil. The outer layer is soil. Once you remove that soil layer, the actual underlayers start to deteriorate, exposed to nature, and that's what we actually see when at Ratnitsa Tumulus we excavate ore on the Moon Pyramid. It's very delicate material, and so it may not have ever been intended to be fully exposed. They may have always been green vegetated pyramids, maybe not with big trees on them. It might have been beautiful meadows, but we'll see.
We will see. Yes.
Well, this is interesting. We can't speak for every archaeologist. We can only talk of our experiences. For me personally, one of the first years I was here, back in 2010, a YIP fellow from Cambridge University, the professor in archaeology and anthropology, Ezra Zabral, a Canadian, he visited Visoko and was very supportive of the project, and he's a big name in archaeology.
So my name is Ezra Zubro. I'm a professor of anthropology at the University of Buffalo and at the University of Toronto, and I'm also the YIP Fellow at Cambridge University at Magdalen College in Cambridge University. I'm an archaeologist, and I am very pleased and privileged to be here and to have a chance to look at the archaeological sites of the pyramids and also of the tunnels. And it would be my very strong opinion that the research that is being done here should be allowed to be continued in its most unfettered form.
Also on the Moon Pyramid, for example, a quick story. Excavating in 2011 on the Moon Pyramid, we had a TV crew up there, and the archaeologist that was overseeing those excavations at the time was being interviewed by the TV crew, and they're asking her, are the pyramids real? And she's categorically stating, yes, there are pyramids in Bosnia. And 5 minutes later they're interviewing me, and the first question they ask is, why haven't any archaeologists said that there's pyramids in Bosnia? And I'm like looking at this guy saying, okay. So even if there are archaeologists supporting it, chances are you've not actually heard from them.
Exactly, and another thing is that this mainstream science and scientists, not science, we cannot blame the science, but scientists, the people who are in charge, are so resistant toward these projects and projects like these that they are sometimes even instructing their students not to talk about it. For example, we had the cases of the students from Sarajevo University and other universities in Europe where they were not allowed even to ask the questions publicly on the class or even to their professors because they might be kicked off their university.
We had a volunteer who came for 2 years in 2010 and 11, and then she went on to be an archaeology student, and in her first year textbook she gets a textbook, and one of the chapters is titled Pseudo-Archaeology, and on that front page, the opening page of that chapter, is a big picture of the Bosnian pyramids. Now in 2010, 11, 12 we actually had quite a lot of archaeologists and archaeology students coming, and then something happened in academia in the field of archaeology that switched them. I mean, when I went back home after a few years working here, I talked to my auntie who had friends with a professor of archaeology, because she's spoken to an archaeology professor who says the Bosnian pyramids are nonsense, and he'd handed her a leaflet. All archaeology professors in the UK were given some kind of leaflet with bullet points as to why the Bosnian pyramids aren't real. And once you've been here and you're involved in a project and you look at these bullet points, you know that they're completely unsubstantiated. So they're really putting fear into archaeologists to not even look at the situation. So they'll never speak out about it because they know that they'll be finished. We had an archaeologist who was told if she supports this project publicly, she will never work as an archaeologist again. And brave lady, she actually ignored that letter and did speak publicly. However, they kept their word, and she never worked as an archaeologist again, which is very sad.
Also, most experts who are writing against the project, usually online on the internet, 99% of them haven't visited this project. It's very important that you come and see with your own eyes pictures, and all the material that you have on the internet is not enough to have objective opinion. So what we are doing, we are inviting them. We said, okay, we respect your opinion, but you have to come and visit and see yourself. Of course, as members of these institutions, they cannot come. But often I had a chance to be a guide for people who came incognito, without their university knowing that they came here, because they were really, very curious about it. And I had really examples of people, those kind of experts, who after the visit to this, they would present themselves to me, say where they're coming from. They said that this is definitely a thing. I haven't knew this, but I will still not be able to speak publicly about it. So for now, it's a shame, but we will see how it's going to develop in the future. Well, I will just say that Dr. Sam was a millionaire when he started this project, and now he's not. He started he was a businessman. He has started his business in Houston very successfully, and in his free time he was traveling around the world, learning about ancient civilizations, ancient knowledge. And after he discovered the Bosnian Pyramids, he just neglected all of the business there that he had, very successful, as I repeat one more time, and he invested all of his finances into this project. So if he wanted to just make money, he would never stop doing what he was doing.
There'd be easier ways to do it.
Exactly.
And also, let's not forget, he also has degrees in politics and economics.
And anthropology.
And a PhD in anthropology. So, he's not just a businessman. Definitely. And actually, when you see him working every single day in the Bosnian Pyramid Valley, there's something more than just money that's motivating that man.
He's 100% dedicated to this project and to the humankind, that it's unbelievable, really. Not just that we are working under him, but it's also something that you have to admire as a person. This amount of energy towards this, and we have all learned from him.
I mean, I have to say he is an inspiration, and I have not had a leader like him in my professional career. So for me, I get asked, when you stand inside the electromagnetic beam at the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, does anything happen? Can you feel it? And some people go up there and they say they can feel it. Now, I can only speak on my own experience, no one else's. For me, personally, I can't feel, there's no tingling on the skin or anything like that. It's not so obvious, but there is some subtle, there is something, but it's not necessarily right at the top in that electromagnetic beam. It's expansive across the whole Pyramid Valley.
Exactly.
And for example, my dreamscape, when I come into the Bosnian Pyramid Valley after spending time outside of it, I can really notice my dreams becoming more vivid, more colourful, and they're a lot more realistic.
Exactly, it is. I will quote one of my colleagues, guide colleagues. He says in the tunnels, he says, "Some guys feel the rain and some just get wet." So, it is the thing that you said, that you can feel the vibe, different vibration and frequency in all of the valley, not just on one spot. But in order to feel it, if you have never felt something similar before, there is a process in changing yourself, accepting certain things. I haven't been spiritual guy ever. I was exploring a little bit more. Then as the project was moving towards energetic dimension, measuring vibrations, frequencies, this what can be proved, physically with the instruments. Then we also started moving towards the spiritual dimension, and that is how these energies are affecting us. And you really start going into it, and meditations, relaxations, yoga, all kinds of, even prayer, if you're a believer to the God, prayer in this Valley of the Pyramid is always so much powerful. It enhances all of the energy.
And you also have to be open to it. I mean, you get skeptics coming who will say, I can't feel anything, there's nothing here. Your brain is so powerful that you will actually turn off that experience. Now, some people will say, oh, it's just a placebo, but I can tell you some of the experiences that I've had that, I don't really like to use the term, but say supernatural, can only be explained because I've been in close proximity to the pyramids for a prolonged period of time. Now, something might not happen if you literally just doing a 1 or 2 day visit. You might actually have to be within that energy field of the pyramid for several days, or maybe even a week or 2 weeks. And if you spend even longer than that, like us, for maybe months on end, you will absolutely feel the difference going from the Bosnian Pyramid Valley to some other place in the world.
Also, I would use not my opinion, but opinion because I'm working with the tourists, like hundreds and thousands of tourists these 11 years. I can tell you, a really huge amount, I would say 80-90% of them, even though they came for the first time, even though some of them had some previous knowledge about it, they were more spiritual, some of them less, most of them felt something strange that they never felt before. So as I said to my tourists, when you're coming to visit Bosnian pyramids, prepare and open yourself, because it's not just about what you see, it's about what you feel.
I really don't like this question for several reasons. Personally, I think it's a lazy answer to say, oh, we can't explain it because we don't have the technology today, so aliens must have done it. That's my problem with that television show on the History Channel, because they cover some great information, but then they sort of wash all away the difficult questions by just saying, oh, it's aliens.
Aliens.
Yeah, and you know, it's actually very complex to ask, did aliens build the pyramids? Now, let's just go into the origin of life on Earth, for example. So there is a mainstream scientific theory called panspermia, in which the life on Earth was seeded from an extraterrestrial source. So taking that, you could argue that humans themselves are actually aliens. So you can say, did aliens build the pyramid? Yes, on the proviso that actually we are the aliens. Also, what are we calling an alien? You know, there may be, they call it cryptozoology, there may be life forms that have always existed on this planet. They still do right now. We just can't see them. We're not aware of them. Maybe they're in a higher dimension of existence, but they're still here on that planet. Does that make them alien? No less alien than us, for example.
Perfect. I would completely agree with you, especially with the first part when you said that sometimes with all those amazing questions we are just washing it away with the aliens. I would also say that it's a very pessimistic view of our civilization today, because many times these people who are supporting alien theory, when they talk about the mess we created as a civilization, the hunger, the wars, all the fear and unhappiness that we're having today, they are somehow waiting for the salvation from the sky. The aliens have to do it. They will come. They did this.
It's a pacifier.
It's exactly. It's when we see the fascination and these details and these amazing structures which we did once upon a time, we would say, no, it's impossible that it was us. For me, it's a very pessimistic view, because we are thinking of ourselves less.
Yes.
I believe in humans. I believe in humans. And I believe that we did those structures, but we did them when we were balanced as individuals and balanced as a society. Once we understand the true potentials of our bodies, and especially when we understand the true potentials of us as a society, we will be able to do amazing things, create such a material, transport it, manipulate with surrounding energy, and definitely live in the world that is set free from fear.
So that was 5 of the 10 most commonly asked questions we get here in the Bosnian Pyramid Valley from visitors. If you like this kind of video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We will complete this series with another 5 questions in the coming weeks. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao.
Bye.
Hi, my name's Rich, this is Ajdin, and welcome to another episode on Forgotten Pyramids. If you like these kinds of videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. So today we are filming from the air spa within the Ravna Tunnels complex, and we are continuing our top 10 questions asked by volunteers about the Bosnian pyramids and what's going on here. So how did they build the pyramids? That's an interesting question. Short answer, don't know. Do you know?
Well, yeah, we don't know exactly that's the right answer, but we have some clues. When we see the structures on Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun and the rest of the pyramids in the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids, we can see that it's some sort of high technology, advanced technology civilization, and it doesn't necessarily needs to be something that we can compare to what we have today in the modern times. So the way they were building the pyramids might be different kind of technologies and different kind of materialization than what we have developed today.
I think it's easier to answer the question by taking the direction we know how they didn't build the pyramids. So specifically the Bosnian pyramids, absolutely they weren't quarrying blocks of stone and stacking them up on top of each other, which is what people initially considered how the Great Pyramids of Giza were built, but geopolymer experts such as Joseph Davidovits, a French geopolymer expert, he's proclaimed that actually the Great Pyramids of Giza, the blocks were poured in situ and built up on top of each other progressively. Rather than quarrying solid blocks, the limestone was disaggregated and reconsolidated using geopolymer chemical reactions and techniques. So maybe we have something similar occurring within the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids. They were using disaggregated geological material and reconstituting it using chemicals to create an exothermic chemical reaction and creating what appears to be almost natural geology. Now this is interesting. So I spoke to a geopolymer expert who operates from London, and he actually 3D prints using geopolymer big structures, mostly commercial and industrial structures, water towers, maybe some office spaces, and he actually showed me some of his offcuttings, some of his waste material that he had at the back of his office, this geopolymer sandstone. And he was saying that after 3 years of being exposed to the weather, the elements, that a geologist just looking at that material wouldn't be able to differentiate between it being a natural stone and a 3D printed geopolymer. And that's just after 3 years of exposure to the elements. So you consider that these pyramids are thousands and thousands of years old. Is it any wonder then that a geologist or an archaeologist who aren't actually trained in anything to do with geopolymers would look at a weathered geopolymer and proclaim that it's just natural stone? Because today with geopolymers, that's exactly the point of them. They're supposed to look like natural stone.
Not to mention the 2 years ago, our little experiment when we tried to reconstruct one of the blocks, conglomerate blocks down there, and it ended in complete failure. But what also we know about the construction is that the material that the tunnels were dug through is identical to material that was used to build concrete blocks. So most probably the conglomerate that was taken out while digging the tunnels, original tunnels, was used to build these ancient concrete blocks that all of the pyramid is made of. Now, if you would ask, let's say, most of the mainstream Egyptologists, they would tell you, okay, in order to do so, you would need hundreds and thousands of slaves, you know, and if you find something that is even more extraordinary, they would just raise the number of slaves that are necessary. Here, what we learned is that this civilization was in complete balance and harmony with the nature, within themselves, within the society, and they were not using any destructive, aggressive methods, so we are pretty sure that they were also very fair to each other, and we are completely isolating this possibility of slaves, not just here, but even in Egypt. There are so many different, more capable theories.
I mean, if you look at the build quality of the Great Pyramids of Giza, you'd have to be suggesting that every slave was a master mason.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, that's just not what would happen. A slave would not be a master mason. They wouldn't be educated. They wouldn't be trained to the high level that would be required to construct the Great Pyramids to the extent that they've been built. So I think to summarise this question, we don't know how they were built.
And that's why we're here.
And that is why we're here. But also, I think to come to the solution, we have to really think outside of the box and understand that right now where we are technologically, we are not at that point yet. We don't have the technological capabilities to actually build a pyramid, whether it be a Great Pyramid from Egypt, a Bosnian pyramid, or even some pyramids in Mexico, for example. They're still beyond our capability.
One more reason why this project is exciting is that we are in some way fastening up the development of science. By learning these methods and technologies, we can help our science to understand and to progress faster.
Okay, so the tunnel air, you know, it's undisputable that we do have particular properties in the tunnels that are beneficial for the human condition. So let's go straight into the negative ion concentrations. Now, people, you go on the internet, you go onto health shops, things like that, there are machines that generate negative ions for your house. And the reason for that is it enables for better breathing, it also clears the dust out of the air, it makes the air more pure, and it's also beneficial for clearing the body and the bloodstream. By having these negative ions, it also reduces oxidative stress within the body. So just these things alone, if you're exposing yourself to higher concentration of negative ions than you normally would be in your day-to-day life, it's going to have a beneficial response. Also in nature, for example, people go to the sea, they go to rivers and waterfalls where there's high concentrations of negative ions for that exact same reason. So is the tunnel air going to have a beneficial effect on your health? Absolutely.
That plus, in order to find out, you need to come and visit us, because the combination of all those elements are also in combination with your own subjective condition. Each condition, even if the illness is the same, the condition of the person is different, because it's a combination of their inner thoughts and their spiritual state, their energetic state, and their physical state.
Yeah.
So the combination of all of it. So if you're asking these questions, this question, if it's going to heal you, we strongly suggest you come and you spend some time in the tunnels and then see the answer for yourself.
And it's not just the negative ions either. I mean, there are therapies now that are becoming more and more popular where they're actually putting people in dark rooms, for example, sensory deprivation. And inside the tunnels, you know, you are getting disconnected from the outside world. It's very quiet. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no radio signal. So you are isolating yourself. So not only is it a perfect environment to be breathing in, but also just to focus yourself, to be in the moment, to meditate, to find your center and explore your inner being. Now, if you combine all of these different factors, I would suggest it's hard-pressed for anyone to say that it's going to be bad for you.
No.
You know, so
It's always positive.
As you said, you know, people need to come and try it for themselves and see if it has any beneficial effects, because the mind is a powerful thing, and if you are just going to be sat at home and saying, oh, that's a load of rubbish, that's not going to help me. Mind's a powerful thing, it won't help you.
Exactly. Also, we are doing in the last few years a lot of medical studies on the people who are coming and visiting us, and tracking their health condition before and after, measuring different parameters, and they're really showing improvement after spending time in tunnels, and especially that we have hundreds of testimonials of people which felt benefits and their health conditions after spending some time in the tunnels. You can find them online.
We even see these people coming. They have
every day.
They have walking sticks. They come for a couple of weeks, and their limps, for example, they're able to walk without as much aid. So, you know, even if let's just play devil's advocate for a moment and say, oh, it's all a placebo. Does it matter?
Exactly.
You know,
if it's helping,
if people are coming and we are actually with our own eyes as well as the testimonials seeing improvement in people, then there must be some benefit somewhere along the line. So this is a very complex question to answer that has many tentacles to it. So let's just start with academia, for example, and not go into any kind of deep societal conspiracy, but just human nature, for example. So just take, for example, an archaeology professor. You know, he's spent his career publishing articles, getting himself a reputation in his field, he's respected, he's in a prestigious position in a university, and along comes a Bosnian guy in a hat, Dr. Sam, and starts undermining this man's life work. Okay, that ego in that person, and this is nothing again, we all have egos, so it's not necessarily an attack on these people. It would be incredibly difficult for someone to cast aside his whole life's work just because all of a sudden this man's popped out of nowhere and is trying to completely undermine our perceived perception of human history. You know, they have publications, and the existence of these Bosnian pyramids categorically disproves their assumptions. So that would be the initial reason why someone sat in his ivory tower in a university would scoff at the notion that there's pyramids in Bosnia. In his world, it's impossible, because he knows he's in his position at a university because he's right, not because he's wrong.
In the beginning of the project, some of the main obstacles were coming directly from the people who felt offended by the idea and hypothesis that Dr. Sam gave. And when the project started improving, and when we started finding evidences, this hurt them on their ego level, as you said. But if we are talking about science being objective,
they're not scientists, are they?
Then these people are not scientists, and then we can see how the science is fragile, because all of the science is made of scientists, and if the scientists are so easy to how to say to be offended and to advocate, then all of the science is on very shaky legs.
And I'm sad to say that a lot of the science that we have in the mainstream today is heavily politicized. So obviously another reason why they would condemn the existence of pyramids in Bosnia is political. We won't go too much into the global politics, 2020, let's leave that aside. But let's talk about the economics, for example. So a lot of Egyptologists, Zahi Hawass, for example, disgraced Egyptologist, head of the Egyptian Museum and whatever he was, they go against that. They're obviously perceived as being experts at pyramids, and rightly so, and they will cast doubt on the existence of pyramids in Bosnia. But then you have to understand, what is their true motivation? Is it for truth and scientific discovery, or is there some other motivation? I mean, all these Egyptologists are getting paid. And Egypt, I think the Giza Plateau alone generates something like $5 billion per year on tourists coming to see the Great Pyramids of Giza. Now, most tourists, they're not Egyptologists, they're not completely fascinated with pyramids.
tourists will come to see the oldest, the biggest, the most spectacular of whatever it is. So in Bosnia, for example, we have pyramids that are 33 times more massive than the Great Pyramid of Giza. So if you're a potential tourist, are you going to want to see a small pyramid or the biggest pyramid? So I'm sure that there's some system in Egypt that are afraid of losing income from tourists to Bosnia. So of course Egyptologists, they're not going to be supporting our project because they get paid. And we've actually seen Egyptologists in the early days of this project come here, support the project, make initial preliminary reports suggesting that there is something anthropogenic underneath the ground here. When they go back to Egypt, they lose their jobs.
Exactly. And they are forced to change the opinion. And another thing I would like to combine the politic and economic. For example, on the local level, many times, unfortunately, in Bosnia, if you want to prosper and if your company or your project or idea needs to be supported by the government, you would need to, let's not say directly bribe, but you would need to financially inject some of the people on the certain positions. And Dr. Sem was always very restrained from that, and he says we're gonna do things on the right way, even if we don't have support from the government, from the local government or from the state government. We will do our own jobs, and we will continue doing our own work without their help and become self-sufficient. And this project became self-sufficient, and after it became self-sufficient, we also started to get improvements in the relations with the local government. And I can say in the last few years the cooperation between local museum even and the local government improved drastically, and we have
baby steps, but there is a path now. We are developing these relationships, whereas we had no relationship at all in the early days. The other aspects, again, we don't want to go too deep into it, but there is obviously a religious aspect to the pyramids. The pyramids are, in some ways, a direct threat to the dogma of organised religions that we have in the world today. It's very telling, I suggest, that, in the Bible, for example, we have stories coming from the Middle East, from Egypt and around that area, and there's no mention of a single pyramid in that Bible, and not in any of the other religious texts either. It almost seems like these huge structures that, anyone that would see it in historical time would be absolutely blown away by them. They are completely removed from any mention in any of the religions. Now, why is that? I suggest that is because the truth of the pyramids would directly undermine the control and power structure of organised religion. Now, this isn't about the religion itself, this is about, modern day manipulators of those religions, not the essence of the religion itself that's directly under threat.
Yes, so as we could hear and see and summarize, there are many reasons why this project was, let's say, blocked from the mainstream media and mainstream science since its beginning. But I like to say that in the beginning this was a little snowball that they tried to stop, but that it slipped through their fingers. And now it became, over the years, larger and larger snowball, and it's impossible to stop it. The truth about the Bosnian pyramids is coming to each part of the world, and whoever wants to stop this project is the person who wants to control the society on the level of fear and the level of negativity. There is nothing negative about this project. Everything about it is a positive. It is promoting peace, love, harmony, balance between people and nature, between genders, between races, between everything. So there is nothing negative about it. Whoever wants to stop this truth from being available to everyone, then he's working for the dark side.
Exactly, and actually, in the early days, they really did make an effort to disrupt this project, and they saw that actually the more effort they put into it, the more attention we would garner from their attacks. So now we're in a phase where they're actually ignoring us. They're not going out of their way to bring us down, and most of academia are just completely trying to ignore us. which, you know, we know what comes after the ignoring. You know, they're going to mock us again, and then they're going to attack us, and then what happens? Then we win. So yeah, there is a distinct lack of hard evidence in terms of ancient prehistoric artifacts coming out of this region. If there's huge pyramids, why aren't there any statues, for example? In Egypt, for example, we see huge statues, the Sphinx, for example, a lot of the pharaohs carved out of granite to amazing accuracy. Why do we not find any of those kinds of things here in Bosnia? Surely if the pyramids are bigger than in Egypt, we would actually find even more incredible artifacts. Well, let me just go into it straight away. So first of all, environmentally, all these preserved structures in Egypt have been buried under sand in a fairly dry climate. And here in Bosnia, a very different climate. There's lots of snow, wind, rain. The ground is always shifting. We have earthquakes, it's seismically active. So just those facts alone are going to increase the speed at which any sort of artifacts or statues or structures would be deteriorated. And I suppose you can speak more on this topic, but this region of the world has been influenced by many other cultures that have tried to seize control of this region. And just talk about that.
Yes, definitely. Bosnia is a land of mystery, not just because of the pyramids, but what was happening since the time of the pyramids. It's the least investigated area, I think, in Europe, especially historically. This has been always a border between East and West. This has always been at the crossroads of different happenings, important historic events. And since this has been also the area that has been isolated, also naturally, it's always a perfect place to hide something as big as the largest pyramid in the world. So the artifacts that have been found here from the Neolithic period, through Roman period, especially through the medieval time, the time of the Kingdom of Bosnia, and later are completely neglected, sometimes systematically destroyed, like statues, sometimes just partially observed and partially protected, but most of the time just forgotten, or sometimes even taken to the other countries. For example, the most important documents and proofs of identity of Bosnian and Herzegovinian are not here in our country, but in the Museum of Rome, Vienna, St. Petersburg, Istanbul, Belgrade, Dubrovnik, Zagreb. It's not here in Bosnia. So somehow the Bosnian identity and the history has been systematically destroyed, removed during the hundreds and hundreds of years. And what happened before, who knows? What I say, why don't we have so many artifacts? We still didn't reach the pyramid. That's the most important thing. We are still not inside the pyramid. We are still cleaning the tunnels that are leading.
Bosnia is incredibly undeveloped land, actually. You know, most of it is rural land still, mountainous rural land, covered in vegetation. So a lot of artifacts, you know, let's just say Roman artifacts in Great Britain, for example, or Viking artifacts, things like this. A lot of these artifacts are found when buildings are being created, foundations are being dug. So in Bosnia there's only a few pockets of areas where there has been urbanization. So there's huge swathes of land that have never been explored. So it's likely that there may still well be many artifacts that have yet to be discovered. Exactly. And just going back to the occupation of Bosnia throughout the ages, you know, many of these artifacts, fantastic artifacts that don't fit into mainstream archaeology. You know, one of the things occupiers do is they try and undermine the culture and society that they're seizing control of. So if there's any incredible artifacts that would speak of the grandiosity of Bosnia's culture, obviously they're the first things that will be targeted, either destroyed or hidden in a private collection, buried for people to never see again. So actually, again, it's not really surprising that we don't find these incredible artifacts. In fact, it makes complete sense.
And one final thing I'd want to touch on is the sheer age of these pyramids, which will dovetail into the next question. But the extreme age of these pyramids, we're talking about a pre-flood civilization. So a lot of these artifacts, structures, temples may have been completely destroyed by inundation of water, washed away, never to be found again. And maybe they were found, but they wouldn't be found in Bosnia because of the huge swathes of water coming through
They
this
will be dislocated.
land. Yeah.
Also, it's not like we don't have anything. For example, the dry walls in the tunnels are in some way artifacts. They are
Absolutely.
thousands of years old man-made or artificial structures. Plus, in the Ravne 3 tunnels last year and the year before that, we found hundreds of different artifacts from metal to another materials that are dating through the centuries, from thousands of years ago through the Middle Ages. So we can see that there was some sort of civilization continuity in using the tunnels in some sorts, in some ways. So if you are an archaeologist, and regardless of opinion what you have about Bosnian pyramids, Bosnia is the perfect place for you to focus your attention, and we are welcoming you to come and help us and find those artifacts.
There are a lot of gaps in the history of this region that needs to be filled. So we don't have a direct age yet that gives us absolute certainty as to how old the pyramids are, although we can sort of isolate some time periods. So we absolutely know for a fact that the tunnels are at least from the Upper Paleolithic. So the Ravna tunnels, specifically the Ravna 3 tunnels, there's been a previous video I've made on that discovery, but we found some speleothems, some stalagmites, and we used uranium, thorium, radiometric dating, and we were able to determine 19,000 years. And these stalagmites were above the drywall, which means that the drywalls are older than the stalagmites. So minimum for the Ravna tunnels, at least being blocked up and the drywalls being constructed, is at the Upper Paleolithic.
This is a very big finding. This is a very big discovery. It's one of the oldest structures in Balkans right now, in the region of Balkans, maybe even in Europe, artificially with the artificial origin. And this has been clearly and scientific proof that we are talking about minimum age of around 20,000 years. Before we found this, we already did certain measurements, some radiocarbon analysis, some other instruments, some other methods were used. For example, one of the first measurements showed that, it was from the institute in Sarajevo, showed that the clay and the vegetation that grew up on it, so the clay that is covering all of the pyramids, approximately 1.5 meters, they are 12,000 years old, which exactly fits in the timeline with the end of the last ice age, when most probably the ice was melting, water was moving south. Was it flood? Was it? Who knows? Then,
and actually, just to interject, the 19,000 years from the stalagmites in Ravna 3, that corresponds with the glacial maximum. So at that point, that's when the ice sheets were at their widest extent, their lowest latitude, and after that point they started to retreat. So we were finding that the sea levels were rising, there was more water, there was more flooding occurring in that time period. So that would correspond with finding 12,000 years worth of soil on top of the surface of the pyramid.
yes. So most probably the pyramids have been covered 12,000 years ago, but they were built another 13,000 years before that. All of those methods that we were using, as I said, radiocarbon analysis was one of the most precise, gave us the years of 30,000 years ago. And some other methods also confirm this age. So we are talking about the civilization that lived 28,000 years before this era, and it had technology, knowledge and power to manipulate with a huge number of material, large number of blocks, and to manipulate with surrounding energies. This has been civilization that was most probably global, but it's been completely wiped out, and we still don't know too much about it. So in order, if you ask us who built it, we don't know. But when it was built, most probably 30,000 years.
Well, it was absolutely built, I can say with almost certainty that the Bosnian pyramids were built before the Egyptian pyramids and the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Now, one of the interesting things when we look at the Egyptian pyramids, and you know, archaeologists and Egyptologists come up with their own fancy ideas why this is the case, but when we look at the Egyptian pyramids, we see that the oldest pyramids are also the best quality pyramids. You look at the most recently constructed pyramids in Egypt in the later dynasties, they are literally just piles of rubble, whereas the Great Pyramids of Giza are almost still, apart from the missing cover stones, in pristine condition. So it seems like there's been a fall in consciousness at this point in time where they were losing the knowledge and the will and the desire to build these structures the way that they did in the past. So if we take that model and see that the greater, biggest, most impressive pyramids in the Egyptian culture were the oldest, then we project that over to the Bosnian pyramids, and we see that the Bosnian pyramids are even bigger than the Great Pyramids of Giza. So perhaps then, following that trend, the Bosnian pyramids are much older than the Egyptian pyramids. And when we're talking about how old the Great Pyramids of Giza are, obviously we are not suggesting, you know, what's it, 4,000 years old in what typical Egyptologists would suggest. There's plenty of evidence all over the Giza Plateau which pinpoints the fact that the Great Pyramids are at least 10,000 years old.
Yes, and we can even partially understand why this age can be a bit conservative, especially to the mainstream scientists. When you talk about 30,000 years ago, they will tell you that there was no civilization that was capable of doing this, and it's impossible that someone existed like that. But then again, they're not behaving scientifically. In science, if you have a proof, if you're using scientific method, empiric way of proving, then there is nothing to be afraid of. You know, a lot of time already they were using a certain timeline to confirm how old our situation, how old our civilization is, and then they found Göbekli Tepe that prolongs our history for a few thousand years. How many times they're gonna find and admit that they were wrong? There is nothing bad in admitting that we were wrong about our civilization.
And actually, Dr. Sam, just to mention Göbekli Tepe, having a conversation with Dr. Sam, he actually met the German archaeologist who sadly passed away now. And when he was determining the age of Göbekli Tepe, he actually made his result more conservative than what he actually believed it to be. I think it's even older than what mainstream archaeology are saying Göbekli Tepe is, because he knew if he was to present his true findings, they would have laughed at him and rejected him, just like they're doing here. So you have to push it a little bit at a time. I mean, I remember when I was at school, the oldest civilization was Sumeria, and that was, what, 6,500 years old, maybe 7,000. And now, you know, it's 8,000, we're finding civilizations 10,000, 12,000. I guarantee you that in 30 years' time, that age is going to be another 10,000 years older. So keep your eyes open, keep your your opinions open, be open-minded, because as we learn more, as more things come to light, the ages are going to get older and older and older.
And one day they're gonna confirm that we were right when we're talking about the civilizations before the classic history is telling us about.
Okay, so they were the top 10 questions asked by volunteers who visit the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids. Now, we'd love to do some more videos like this in the future, so if you have any questions that you would like to be answered in this style of format, leave a comment below and I'll collate the most commonly asked questions, and we'll do another video in this series at a later date.
We will be very glad to help anyone out there who is willing to come here and visit us. We are always open 365 days per year. You're always welcome, we are always active. This is the most active archaeological location in the world, and we are inviting you to come and join us in revealing the true history. Sorry for my sometimes maybe bad English, it's not my mother language, but you should hear Richard's Bosnian.
Oh, nije dobro. Okay, and on that note, we'll sign out. Vidimo se, ciao.
Bye.